closet Republican. Do I sound like a closet Republican? I don't, right? I sound like a liberal, right?
No, you sound intellectual. I don't get hung up on right or left. I look for base info. I mean, I admit openly that I'm right of center, but I swing left sometimes. It depends.
Yeah, I find myself sometimes as a man without a country because what I value most is candor and honesty. It's one of the reasons I love my senator, Fetterman. I think Fetterman's great, largely because he's intellectually interesting, right? He's willing to go against his own. He's willing to do perpetual sister soldier movements, which for me is huge. And I think most people on both sides of the aisle don't have an appreciation for that kind of candor. So I don't know. And Marshall's on the phone, so let's bring up Sean B. Sean, do you want to come up and take a fresh five or no? Sean does not. Marshall's on the phone.
I invited Leanne. I don't know the others, though.
All right, let's bring Leanne up. I don't know Leanne, but that's great.
You know Leanne. She's a fan of the Critical Thinking Forum. She's always in our chat. Good lady.
All right, Leanne, you can come up. Marshall, I showed you was on the phone, sorry.
No, I did show you was on the phone, but sometimes it doesn't work.
So Joe thinks your party is going to pull it together, and you don't. I mean, you don't. Is there somebody in the wilderness that could come unite the party? I don't. I mean, look, I'm with Marshall. I don't think these two guys. I don't think they have the charisma that Trump has, and I don't think they're party builders. But is there somebody that could emerge from the wilderness and bring this thing together?
Glenn Youngkin could try. He's not too tainted. I heard him.
That's Abby's guy.
Yeah, I heard it from Abby. Like I agree with her. Glenn Youngkin doesn't have a lot of taint. Donors like him. But when she talks, she always talks from the donor perspective. I mean, she's not like... And I think she would tell you this herself. She doesn't do the same kind of stuff I do. She funds, I walk. Right? Like, she's responsible for, like, getting the money that pays me to do the shit I'm doing currently. Right? So her take on the party is always kind of a top-line national take, which I don't happen to disagree with most of the time. It just, like, she approaches it a little bit differently. What's up, James? How you doing?
What is CTF? What's up?
Called the Critical Thinking Forum. It's this guy who's a radio talk show host, and he like does news work at night, and so he gets up during the day and like holds a mini talk show on Clubhouse, and he runs it like an AM talk show.
Oh,
so that's what it is. I don't know. He likes it. I enjoy it. You know, you end up listening to interesting people. So what's going on with you, man?
I'm in the heart of Atlanta right now.
Nice. Atlanta's a pretty fun place.
Yeah, not good driving. I mean, every 5 minutes.
Oh no, I wouldn't want to drive in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That just seems not very much fun. We're just kind of generally talking about like midterms. Like Joe thinks like we could pull one out in 28. I'm a lot more skeptical. I think that like, hey, typically when presidents have their terms, if there's been 2 terms of a president, even if it's a Garfield style, which Trump is, then people get tired and they want the other side, and so you get the opposing party as the president. You may not get the opposing party as Congress, but you get the opposing party as president. So Joe thinks it's a little bit more rosier. I think it's a lot more, I think it's a lot less rosy, personally.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no, whether there's not going to be a
Chip in, how you feeling, man?
I'm sorry?
I said chip in however you feel like you can build. I just wanted to give you what we were talking about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, there's not going to be a rosy scenario. There's not going to be a candidate who's going to say, look, the law is the law. We have to respect the law. And we've got to undo decades, more than a century, of flagrant violations of the Constitution. You know, that's not going to happen. That's not going to be on the ballot. So, do you want to really address the systemic problems we have in this country? Do we want to return to a constitutional republic? Or do we just want to...
I mean, Digest, there is a guy, right, that has those credentials. It would be Rand Paul, right? I mean, that would be...
No.
Who's a viable candidate. I mean, I mean, and that's the closest you're going to get, I think, to a constitutionalist.
That's the non-constitutionalist. No one will stand for election who will clearly describe the constitutional violations that have taken place since 1798 onto the current day. They won't offer it. Anyone who stands for election.
But that just be a realist, right? I mean, look. There's no 18th century purist, but I mean, if you were going to get this kind of agenda, right? We're going to move anywhere close to the 18th and early 19th century understanding of Republican government, small r. I think Rand Paul would be your guy, right? I mean,
because you have to understand, there's guilt by participation. These people have knowingly and willingly participated and drawn.
So who's your guy, though? Do you have a guy that...
There's not a guy. Look, I mean, if somebody stands for election, it surprises me that let's go ahead and consider them, but we have a much bigger job before us, which is to develop a language consistent enough to ensure that whenever candidates stand for election, they're properly questioned and interrogated and appropriately discarded. Now, that's not as fun because we prefer to have all the work done for us by the political parties. We prefer them to put on these debates, these boring, trite, monotonous debates that are all the same, and then they'll pick the winner of those, and then we'll just vote for the blue guy or the red guy. I mean, it's kind of pathetic. So what we want to have a conversation about actually, what we ought to have here in this country, about what it means to have.
Man, fuck this country, nigga. Be quiet, bitch ass nigga. Fuck this country, nigga.
The hell is that? What is going on? Are you alright?
We have a cantankerous room. P, what's going on? P, JP. What are your thoughts on the issue? I don't know how you vote, but what is your hope for the country in 2028?
I'd hope that you held a national convention.
Based.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
one question for you guys, because I'm not even in the States. I'm an outside observer of the United States, but a scholar of it. But I want to ask people. I hate about the sense that you need to speak about people who find the problems and the solutions to be given to you top down. But if I must talk about people, because that's what people talk about, what do you think of Thomas Massey?
I mean, I'd love to tell you that Thomas Massey is going to solve everything, but you have to be willing to speak in a certain way and avoid certain things to make it in this illegitimate system of governance at all. And he's been willing to do that. I assure you that he will not provide you with some relief. You really need to recognize how dire the problem is. You can send the best and the brightest to Congress, and they're going to get turned into another automaton. I mean, that's not speculation. That's fact. And then,
Isn't part of the problem that what you, if you're a House member, which is most of the Congress, you're basically spending all your money raising millions of dollars to keep a job that pays what, like 150 grand. I mean, it's ludicrous. I mean,
you're not spending your money. I mean, that's the problem, is that you're not spending your money. You're not being elected based on money you spend. You're being elected based on money other people spend to get you elected, and in order to get elected, you've had to play ball. And ultimately, yeah, the House of Representatives should be important. There's several. I mean, the United States has one representative in the House, and again, I'm violating, a policy here, one of my own policies to tell you this. There's about 750 to 780,000 people per representative in Congress. That is the worst in the developed world. There's no one even close. I think the next
On
one
the left side, actually, the high side's about 1.2.
1.2 million.
Yeah. The founders wanted about 30,000, but it's anywhere between about 700,000 to about 1.2 million.
Yeah, the founders very clearly forgot. They didn't anticipate states willingly giving up their right to maximize the number of representatives that they could send. And then, in 1912, we stopped increasing the size of the House, and we end up with something that would not be necessary if we just did what the Constitution had originally laid out, which was that you need, no more than one representative for every 30,000 people. You'd think every state would be saying, okay, well, every 30,000 people I got, I'm sending another representative. A lot of California's complaints would be resolved immediately if they just demanded this, but they don't. So you have to understand, it's like when you tell somebody who's morbidly obese, you need to stop putting food in your mouth. It's like, they will give you these excuses. At the end of the day, they just won't stop putting food in their mouth. That's absolutely all there is to it. And as far as the Constitution, the law is concerned in the United States, the prognosis is clear, the therapy is clear, everything is clear. No one is willing to do it because no one is going to hold them accountable if they don't. And we continue to play this game where we say there's a serious systemic problem, and then we just pick a personality and say, well, they've got the right stuff. For Christ's sake, we elected Donald Trump. People endorsed and supported Donald Trump for the office of the presidency. And it's embarrassing.
the guy just
I'm not talking about
you sound like a guy that's right of center.
I'm sorry?
Is that fair to say you're right of center or no?
I probably consider right of center.
So you and Joe.
I don't know. Hold on. I don't know. This is like, I don't think that you can put me. I don't think we should consider ourselves on a spectrum between the right and the left here, because, as a matter of fact, this is irrelevant. The greatest rule to the constitutional republic is so great that I don't think anything should have a complete rebirth, reincarnation, a reassertion of cornerstone foundational law is going to preserve liberty and justice and prosperity. This is right of center. The right elected Donald Trump. The right said the right was being accused of being supporters of Nazis until the competition. It's like ultimately to count the number of abortions the Baptist crowd has had, and the amount of abortions the liberal crowd has had. Okay, we're talking about says she believes other people should tell her what it says. She believes that we should blindly and unquestioningly.
Joe, I'm on heavy-handed today. Joe, what are you?
That's not true.
I'm not being heavy-handed. I'm just trying to keep the smart people on the stage. So, how do you respond to that, Joe? I mean, that sounded to me like somebody that's going to lose elections.
I was responding to him. What he was saying is not true. I think the right takes each individual topic and measures it according to their core beliefs. And that's where the difference lies. The Democrats and the Republicans have different core beliefs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think, look, I think my own party, I actually think the best chance we had at taking back the country was in 2016 with Bernie Sanders, because he was a working class guy. He was not a culture warrior, right? He didn't want to be in people's bedrooms. He didn't want to talk about religion. He wanted to talk about resources and sustainable living. What we did was we put our thumbs on the scale and we sent him to the political wilderness, right? And we basically said, no, there's no Bernie Sanders allowed. And the only thing that's allowed in the Democratic Party is Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. These people that are stewards of a welfare state that no one, that I think a lot of people would like to see us go either to the right or to the left of. So I don't know, Joe. I don't know. Don't know. Marshall, are you still on the phone or no?
I'm not on the phone, I was doing math.
Oh, what's the math saying?
The math says I have more work to do.
Wait, you knocking on doors, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm counting how many doors I knocked on.
Do you get paid per door, or no?
No, I negotiated a flat rate of $1,200 a month, plus other campaigns.
Oh, that's not bad. How do I get that gig?
When your senator goes up for re-election, volunteer, see if you can be a paid door knocker, and then you go knock on people's doors, and hopefully the next year they'll pay you more. They probably won't pay you a ton the first year, but if they're well financed and they can afford to pay, ask for something decent. But don't think you can't ask them to pay you. Just don't ask for $5,000 a month. They're probably not going to pay you $5,000 a month.
Door knocking's hard, though. It really is, Marshall. I hate it.
But it's fun. I like it.
Well,
It's
you
a lot of fun.
have to have a certain personality. I'd rather,
That's true.
I don't know, coordinate people.
I can do the coordinating, but I like the knocking. It's fun.
I think I like both. I like, I'm a podcaster, and I like doing podcast interviews and things like that. So I like coordinating with leaders. But I'm kind of with Marshall. I like strangers, and I find strangers really interesting. And I think you get an interesting perspective when you talk to a stranger. Although I'll tell you quite frankly, I'm not, I'm in Philly right now. I'm not talking to many strangers, but they're all around me, but I'm not talking to them. Simon, how are you? What are your thoughts on the state of the country? And do you have a political party? And where is your hope for the future of Western society? Yep, you sound great.
Yeah, I can hear you, Simon. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
I'm extremely pessimistic for the future of the Western
in civilization. Yeah, I would not affiliate myself to any political party in the U.S. at the moment. And yeah, I mean, I think there's huge, how do you say it, strides that have to be made in order to reverse what's happening right now culturally. In favor of more, in favor of more freedom, and people have to have like a proper understanding of what that looks like. Because I don't see a cultural trend in any positive direction at the moment in the U.S.
You know, Simon, that famous maxim, I would say, by Andrew Breitbart, that said, politics is spring from culture.
Yeah.
So if you want to influence politics, you go upstream or downstream.
Yeah, I think that is largely right. I mean, I think politics is always downstream of culture. I think what's interesting is the Democrats, for years, have been the influencers of culture through media, through education, things like that. I think what's interesting is Trump turned that around. Like Trump is a one-man resistance to the left, and he's incredible at this. Right? I mean, I think he's basically he's as good of a weapon as anything the left has, and he just does it by the sheer force of his personality, which is super interesting and intriguing. Yeah, I mean, I think he's the best thing the right has ever had.
I don't know if he's the best we've ever had, but he certainly is the best in the modern era, at least in the last 10 years.
Who was better? Ronald Reagan. Reagan was better.
Dwight Eisenhower.
Oh yeah.
Dwight Eisenhower is far better.
Yeah.
Trump actually destroyed. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's Trump that destroyed him, but yeah, because of how I think Trump reunited the center left, center right. So I didn't like him to find the ideas on the left and right, because now the Democratic Party has shifted really radically. But now the right basically doesn't stand for any of its original principles. So it's like the right, because of a lot of the policies that Trump has now, it's basically just like a party of basically nothing. It's just a mixture of left and right, and it doesn't have any Trump principles behind it. Whereas in the 80s, when you speak to something like some Trump conservatives, they were actually opposed to Trump welfare systems and all that stuff. Whereas now it's just open season for basically got a crazy leftist to join the party, and now those people are doing the party is making dumb economic policies, all that good stuff.
I have to joke. Excuse me. I'm gonna finish eating. Sorry. Thank you for letting me speak, Scott and Marshall.
Oh, Joe, I'm a huge fan of yours. Come to any of my stages. I adore you. So, and I'm the only school choice Democrat on Clubhouse. So,
That's right. Bye, you guys.
Benjamin,
Great to see you.
Benjamin, look, my friend, I'm putting rooms.
Oh yeah, you're opening a room. That's
that's good. I have graduated from Clubhouse now. I'm now promoting my content and my new DVD, How to Survive in an Islamic Country. It's got all the things you need to know when an Islamic country comes to you, which it probably will come soon.
Now, Benjamin, you're an interesting guy because I think you don't map very clearly politically.
Yeah, no, I don't.
No,
On all your houses.
Well, would you like a fresh five to tell us what's your vision for the country? I mean, what would you, if you could
I have a pretty simplistic view of history. I see history as being largely a conflict between the Zoroastrians and the Islamicists. And I see the West as being Zoroastrian. I don't acknowledge Judaism as a religion. I don't acknowledge Christianity as a religion. I just call them Zoroastrianism in drag.
So you would say these traditions are part of this thing that came out of the Middle East that's largely monotheistic.
It's a monotheistic dualism.
Okay.
Things are either good or bad and all this kind of categorization. And, and it matters how much good you do, and when you die, somebody gives a damn, right? All of that is Zoroastrian as far as I'm concerned. It's not really present. Like, if you read Job, you wouldn't get the notion that the dominant religious view is a monotheistic, dualistic religion, right? You get this weird kind of God character who plays with his food and has no other redeeming virtues. So I think that religious thought died a long time ago. And what we have today is much more aligned with what the Zoroastrians, the Persians, had 600 BC. And then we have Islam, which is dead set on destroying Zoroastrianism. And I think that one of them is better than the others. I think Zoroastrianism is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And Islam is just god-awful, horrible, nasty, and must be defeated. I think that it's a shame that we're going to have to elect monsters, cretins, that you wouldn't want your daughter to have anything to do with, right? Like the worst people in the world. In order to defend us from the Islamicists, because the people that you would want to have in government refuse to do it, are incapable of doing, are so confused. They can't bear to tie their own shoes. So we end up with the politicians we need, not the politicians we want. Because the only agenda item that matters is beating Islam. And that's the only agenda that's mattered for 2,000 years.
So you're a Clash of Civilizations guy, and
probably I am, right? This is all Clash of Civilizations.
Yeah. I hate being that guy, but I'm in your camp. I mean, I'm of the same perspective. I think largely we built this thing that is built on, we call it Judeo-Christian, we call it Abrahamic faith, so I could ever say, and we kind of evolved beyond it, right? I mean, there are people like me that you would make fun of because I can't let go of the silly traditions, but you and I are aligned on this kind of perspective that we've got a system that is robust, interesting, pluralistic, diverse. Most of world civilization doesn't do this, and we create tremendous amounts of wealth, right? And you're kind of saying we've got to hold on to it at any cost, and I don't think you're wrong, actually.
Yeah, I'm not usually wrong. I mean, a lot of people have tried to explain to me why I'm wrong. They tend to kind of gurgle a lot. Usually they reduce to something like an ad hoc attack, where they say something like, well, you don't have a college degree, which seems to be their argument. And it was like, well, it's not really going to help you when the Muslims come and decide that you got to believe in Muhammad, or they're going to kill you with a
No,
sword.
I've been to 3 academic institutions in my
You can't
time.
hold up your little college credential and say, yeah, but I have a college credential. Like, it's not.
Benjamin, you are as smart as anyone I was in doctoral work with at Princeton. Doesn't mean I agree with you all the time, but I mean your intellectual capability is not. Yeah, I mean you're pretty good.
See, I gotta say this, you and I had the exact opposite reaction to like not having a college degree. I dug further into academia and books. I'm not saying you don't read, but you like seem to eschew college degrees and kind of what they represent. Maybe I'm getting your position a little wrong. I think I kind of am. So correct me if please. It seems like we took 2 totally different lessons from it. Like I want my 4-year degree, and I think it's in my mind it's a bad thing that I didn't finish what I started, and so I want to finish it. I don't know if you ever had the same opportunity, if you just never went to college, but you seem to approach it in a totally different fashion. So.
Well, I have sympathy for people like my friend Scott who find it difficult to learn on their own, and they need help, and they've got to go find somebody they can pay money to help them learn. It's really a tragic thing to be a human and not know how to learn. Be like paying somebody to teach you how to walk. But whatever. I mean, I'm a generous soul. I don't judge.
No, I was just hoping you would reflect on the difference between the two ways.
I don't judge people for having to pay other people to help them learn. But look, I think there's a real problem with universities, which is they're sapping our economic vitality. And there's some good research that's come out and really pointed out that what happens is we take people who are kind of medium smart. I mean, smart people don't go to college, to be honest. I think Bill Gates is going to college. You think Mark Zuckerberg is going to spend more than 25 days in college? University is not for smart people. It's for people who want to be smart. Now, the second is the universities are taxing young people, and they're loading them up with debt. So they leave the university with $150,000 in debt, and that really curtails their options. So these people who should be going out and creating new businesses are instead going out and accepting kind of an old school job that they hate, and they sit in there and they rot and they don't do the job very well. They're not very productive. They're not creating new opportunities, and they kind of have to do this because they're sitting on a debt that they can't pay. And so they just kind of like end up winding out, and then they kind of like, they're just kind of like, their life ends. And they've actually categorized the amount of new businesses that are missing because we've created a debt-oriented educational, pseudo-educational system. So yeah, I think the pseudo-educational system is at this point harming our vitality, our families. It delays the formation of families. It delays the formation of businesses, and we need families and businesses far more than we need credentials. There's not much you can do with a credential. I don't know if you've ever tried to do anything with a credential, but they're pretty useless piece of paper.
There's a quote I read today by Carl Sagan that said, the most intelligent people are self-taught, even if they went to the university. And so, and it proves true, you know. Elon wouldn't be, well, Elon did finish, but Gates wouldn't be Gates, or Jobs wouldn't be Jobs, you know.
like overemphasize degrees and underemphasize practical learning. But I still, as somebody who never finished school, I regret not finishing school. It's not a piece of my life where I think to myself, God, I escaped that boring old university system. It's a case where I often think to myself, man, I really wish I finished my history degree. Right? Like I think about that often.
What do you think?
I had a different approach.
Marshall, what do you imagine is in the history degree?
Nothing. I just want to be able to say I did it. I don't like the fact that I quit something halfway through.
But Marshall, do you really think that a history degree is anything other than a collection of lies that the victors tell themselves?
I don't think it's a collection of lies. I think your point is like, can't I learn that stuff other places? And it is. I think the reason it matters more to me is because I quit halfway through.
Well,
Just give me a second. Like, I was not in a place, like, headspace wise, where school was a good idea. It just wasn't. Like, I had a bunch of shit wrong with me, and like, couldn't have been told anything was wrong with me. But I want that piece. I want to be hidden. Maybe that's stupid, but like, I want to be able to say I finished what I started.
There you go.
So this is nice. This is wonderful. I'm going to Thanks, guys.
Is Marshall broken up for everybody here?
Woman who I've many years after reading my Substack wrote me, "We don't hate the Jews, we just hate the Zionists and the criminal country of Israel." Okay, that's a point of view. And then she went on and on and on, sending me message after message after message, which proves, I put that in quotation marks, that Jews are liars. See, if you're born a Jew, you're a liar. So right there we see that claiming that you're not anti-Semitic, you're just anti-Zionist or anti-Israel, isn't going to cut it any longer. And they're coming out from behind that facade and letting us know. Okay, so with that introduction, I'm going to start calling people in the order in which I see them, and I will be bringing people up from the stage one at a time. From the audience to the stage one at a time. And today I begin with Alan, followed by Howard.
Thank you, Gary. My prayer will be after you, after I read your article. And I think it's a time everybody has started speaking against these nonsense and these haters, which they call you and every single. It's the excuse they come up with. They try to justify the criminal act one way or another. No matter in what way. this is stupid. I just disagree with the Zionism and the state of Israel, but I beat the hell out of the poor Jewish guy going to synagogue in California. Can you see there is no connection in between other than propaganda, and these people grow up with the hate against the Jewish people and so forth and so on. If you look at my picture, I can translate the Persian writing on the picture on my nickname. This stupid idiot reporter of Germany, middle of nowhere, and asked Reza Shah II, "Are you the Mossad agent?" And look at the profound answer he gave. He says, "No, I'm not. But while you and your government were burning the Jewish people in the oven, my grandfather harbored them and helped them to the best he could." Out of nowhere, he comes in, try to use this propaganda and hate just automatically to turn the focus to the hate Reza Shah II. That's all there is to it. If they connected to him, automatically they believe in the rest of the world's gonna hate him. They did that with his father. They couldn't. They wouldn't shredded the evidence he had anything. Jewish, I grow up with Jewish. I grow up with Christian Armenian. They were freely walking around. There was no sign of anything. But you want to take care of probably 60-70% of this, get rid of the cause of it. And it is the regime of Iran. They came to the power with these. Well, actually, I'm going to start saying exactly what the Iranians say it from inside Iran. The Islamic regime of Jimmy Carter. And you cannot deny that. You cannot pass it on. You cannot do anything. That's the 100%. But enough is enough. I think the whole human race, they need to stand up with this nonsense. Every time I hear some poor Jewish guy, for one reason or another, he got hurt, it breaks my heart. Because I believe in my heart, human are the same organs of one body. If one organ gets hurt, the rest all gonna be hurt. There's no other thing to go to it. But when you raise the kids, they go and they put the bomb in them belt and blow themselves up in the bazaar. There gotta be something wrong in those things. All you hear is poor Palestinian, poor Palestinian. Your heart is bleeding for Palestinian. What about the one they go to Iran and beat the hell out of the innocent people on the street? My nephew, she was 12 years old when he says, "Uncle, these people don't speak Farsi. They don't understand. All they have these baton in their hand and they beat the hell out of an individual." And then, where they come from? Palestine. The poor Palestinian. Everybody's heart is bleeding for them because they are dying of hunger. No, they're not. They were the leftover, they were the criminal of the Egyptian which they kicked out. And they didn't have no place, no name, no nothing until that bastard ambassador came around. And the things started. And right after that, no human Khomeini came in and started saying Zionism, Zionism. But we say not Zionism, but Zionism. Zion means the person love his country, is ready to die for his country. Those 14, 15, 16, 17, 20 years old Jewish people, they joined the IDF by heart to just to defend their own country. Back to you, Gary. But people need to start talking.
So thank you for that,
They can
Alan.
stop doing exactly the same.
So thank you, Alan. You're absolutely right that in modern Iran, there was an affinity between the actual body politic of the country by this regime. And it is also true, you're absolutely right, that they are the greatest exporter of terrorism in the world. And their number one targets are not just Israelis and Israel, but Jews. However, I just want to point out that when you're Jewish, you have to have your head on a swivel because it's not just coming from these Islamic extremists that are running the regime in Iran. It's coming from the far left and it's coming from the far right. And some of the comments that I'm getting as a result of my postings are indicative of commentary that's coming from people who are not necessarily Muslims or not necessarily Palestinians, but who just hate Jews, and they're using these conflicts as an excuse to go after Jewish people. And so that's the problem that the Jewish community faces. You have this organized, state-sponsored organized terrorism coming from one direction, and you have organized hatred coming from the far left, and you have organized hatred coming from the far right, and it's very hard. I mean, we have to seek in this country, as we discussed yesterday, and in the world, some moderation and some middle ground, because people look, and I truly believe what that minister said, Lutheran minister said during the Holocaust. You know, everybody kept quiet when they came after the Jews, and then when they kept quiet when they came after the Gypsies, and when they came after this one and that one. And then he said, and then when they came after me, there was nobody to speak up. That's a paraphrasing, but I think it was a very powerful comment that he made. And I think we have to be cautious that history not repeat itself. When people are suggesting gas ovens for the Jews, because allegedly because of what Israel is doing, whether you agree with them or not, is just absolutely indicative. And if they feel comfortable saying this out loud, not just in their little man caves or in their neighborhood pubs or whatever, now we've got a problem. Thank you for that, Alan. Howard, followed by Marshall.
Thanks, Gary. And Alan, thanks for sharing your perspective. Gary, unfortunately, I don't really have any good things to add. I mean, this is an extremely serious issue that's festering. It's continuing to grow. Just to connect, a couple days ago on this stage, we were talking about the events that happened over the weekend with the correspondence dinner. You had someone on the stage who firmly believed like it was the Democrats calling for the president's assassination, and that person revealed, well, that's what they're seeing on their social media. They believe it. And Marshall said, yeah, it's an algorithm. And I don't want to put words in Marshall's mouth, but essentially Marshall was saying people get influenced by the algorithms. And I know today's social media is definitely not helping the cause. I know recently I have a person that I know very closely that is involved with a pretty big summer camp at a JCC in the country. And they've made the decision this summer, they're going to have over 300 campers at one time, that they are not going to do any off-site field trips. No trips to the zoo, to the park, to a lake. They're keeping everything on the premises because of concerns about violence and the rise rise in anti-Semitism. And the last thing I'd like to add, Gary, is the thing I'm most concerned about, and especially when I think about my daughter and call it the next generation, that similar to what's happened, as in one example, with school shootings, whether it was Columbine or what happened in Parkland down in Florida, my other concern is with this rise in anti-Semitism. I think, generally speaking, and it could be because of the way our habits are forming with our news cycles, there's a growing desensitization to it. That it's like, oh, it's not. It's like it's another one. Like it's not as big of a deal as the shocking and the horror of the actual event in isolation is. And then, Gary, there's one thing I will disagree with you on because I see it personally in my interactions. You're saying the anti-Semitism, it's either far left or far right. There's growing anti-Semitism straight in the middle. Just people have views and attitudes based on current events. And I've come across people who actually are sharing their anti-Semitic viewpoints, and they're not radically on the left or on the right. They're basically what I would just call someone who's a citizen in the middle. And with that, Gary, I'll crash the Skylab right now.
So that last observation is accurate, and I'm not disputing it. It's even worse. Having your head on swivel is not enough. You got to look straight ahead. And I think your descriptive analysis of what's going on with the summer camp. Can you imagine any other group getting together? A group of whatever it is that brings them all together, another religious group, having a summer camp, as many do. And you can't take the children to the zoo or the museum for fear of being attacked just because you are a member of a certain faith. Is that happening to any other faith group in the United States? I don't think so. And again, just because you're born into a faith doesn't mean you have anything to do with the decisions of Israel. And I'm not here to argue for or against Israeli policy. That's not my point. It's okay to criticize the Israeli government. It's okay to support the Israeli government. It's not okay to intimidate and attack Jewish people because of what the Israeli government does. And yet, it happens with a degree of impunity in our nation. And not enough people are standing up to it. That includes Jews. We need to be tougher. But that's another story. Thank you, Howard. Marshall, followed by Scott.
Well, I feel for my Jewish friends. I wish there was something more I could do aside from speak out. I don't know what you can do personally other than when you find it, oppose it. Participate if your local synagogue needs something, like help out. I don't know. Hating black people and hating Jews seem to be two of the oldest kind of hatreds in the world. This is where I get pessimistic about human beings. It seems to be rather easy for society to blame Jews. I don't know what the history of blaming Jews in China is, but seems like things get tough, you blame the Jews. I'm not talking about those that criticize the Israeli government. I agree with you. They ought to have the right to have their opinion. I'm talking about the folks that are specifically anti-Jewish. That seems to be rising with an alarming regularity. And I don't know what to do about it. I wish I had something better to say or more encouraging. But I don't know what you do about it aside from in your private life, stand up against it. Make sure where you have influence, you speak out against it. Make sure where you can put yourself in the way and protect people, you do. But Sure, that and joining organizations that help out. I don't know what an individual can do on their own. You know, I don't want it to be one of these things where we just like have this show and we just like lament that this is happening. You know, if there are any organizations people get involved in, obviously that's the way to do it. You know, find a nonprofit that's helping out, help out. That's about how that hits me. I don't know, my local temple needs something, I'd be happy to help. So I'll leave it there. I don't know how to say much more. I think I've said all I have to say.
Well, you know, Jews have been expelled and scapegoated for centuries, long before the establishment of the State of Israel. In 1290, expelled from England. In 1306, expelled from France. In 1492, expelled from Spain. Then it picked up after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. 1 million Jews forced out of Arab and Muslim countries, including Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria. Under the Roman Empire, there was an expulsion that triggered a nearly 2,000-year diaspora.
Yeah, it's 70 AD, I think.
Right. That was long before, obviously, the establishment of the State of Israel. And that doesn't include expulsion from specific cities or regions, not entire nations, leading to forced migration. There's plenty of documentation of all of this. So, this nonsense that they're coming after the Jews because of Israel's treatment of the Palestinians is ridiculous. If it weren't the Palestinians, it would be another reason. I mean, previously it was they controlled the finances, or they control the media.
Andrew, like I said, it seems to be like it's one of the oldest hatreds in the Western world.
Right. And there's no history of the Jewish people rising up against their neighbors. So, one might argue with Israel, but one could also argue that this is in response to attacks on Israel, just like any other nation state might do. But there's, and historically the Jews did not get together and go massacre populations. And the number of Jews in the world is so minuscule.
There's like 16 million people, something like that.
I would have to look up the latest figures on this.
It's 15 million, yeah.
It's like, okay, now, if you get rid of all the Jews, now what are you going to do? What are you going to do then? Who are you going to turn your hatred to then? Or are you going to be living in some kind of utopian world? Oh my God, the world suddenly got better. By the way, when it comes to the State of Israel, people who hate the State of Israel think it should be wiped off the map. Ought to look at all the contributions Israelis have made to society in the medical field and the technology field. We wouldn't be talking on our iPhones right now if it weren't for what the Israelis developed. Others are building the iPhone, but it was the Israelis who developed it. We wouldn't be using our car navigation. We wouldn't have, maybe eventually somebody else would have come up with it, but we wouldn't have pacemakers and so many other things. Good reason to get rid of the Israelis and the Jews for their contributions. It's, as Mr. Spock would say to Captain Kirk, illogical. Scott, followed by Dave.
Gary, you're killing me with the Spock reference. By the way, both Jews, Shatner and Leonard Nimoy were both Jews. But and I'm a huge Star Trek guy. If you turn down the volume on Wrath of God. I can say all the ones. I would say where the anti-Semitism is rooted is in Genesis 37. If you look at it. So, Joseph saves the people of Egypt and saves the whole world through his storehousing and of grain. And the Pharaoh says in that chapter of the Bible, your people can be where, we owe you. But you can only be in Dothan because people hate shepherds. I mean, the Egyptians just hate shepherds. And I think that's part of the thing. I mean, I think why people hate Jews is because they've been able to have identity without power, which the Western world just doesn't understand. And it finds, the Jewish people have had a sense of continuity and connection without political power. And sometimes they've, had some influence and sometimes they haven't. But that is, and then I think, it's very interesting. Scott Galloway, who is a secular Jew and, a pretty prominent guy, in public discourse, his argument was, we're just not comfortable with Jews waging war the way Gentiles do. So we would have been comfortable with a defensive war or something, right? Which no one fights, right? Everybody fights asymmetrically. If you have the advantage, you press it and you force it. Just what everybody does. But we're not comfortable when Jews do it. And it goes back to Genesis 37, on the fact that Jews are shepherds. And, what is Israel? What is Egypt? Egypt is not a shepherd. They're a manufacturing sort of agrarian mega power. And that's just not how Israel has survived. And we're just fundamentally, we don't like it. We just fundamentally don't like it. I mean, in the West, we just, the anti-Semitism is so deep in our bones, which I think if we could admit it, that would be great. We could, admitting racism, admitting anti-Semitism, admitting, but it's just so hard to do. So yeah, I don't know. But I think they're the best liberal democracy in the region, and if I could go volunteer for the IDF, I would do it, but can't do it now. But thanks for the room, Gary.
Thank you, Scott. Dave, followed by Perusian.
So since Scott talked about Bible, I will try to explain your observation that why there is anti-Semitic coming from the far left, far right, as well as the center. It all dates back to 70 AD when Jews are distributed throughout the whole world. And so it's clearly stated in the Old Testament, which Scott say, but not the chapter that he's talking about, but Ezekiel 30, that one day God will bring Jews from all corners back to the land of Israel. And so that is written in Old Testament. And so for the Christian early church, when they look at it, land of Israel, bringing back land of Israel, Jews already distributed all over the world. How should we deal with this controversy? How should the Christian deal with it? So what they do is they come up with a theology that is totally contradictory to the Old Testament, and this lasted 1,900 years into the total 2.5 billion Christian, except those Christians in the red state of the United States. They are called Christians. That is how bad the situation, the deep-rooted hate of Christians toward the Jews. Because of this failure to have faith in what is written in Old Testament, and this problem lasted 1,900 years. And after the independence of Israel in 1948, the Pope had to struggle with this. What should we do? Now, the Bible in the Old Testament actually is coming to the truth. And so the Pope in Vatican struggled for another 17 years before finally a Pope said, we have to start recognize there is a physical Israel. But in 2026, if you speak to Catholic from South America, from those swing states, from Europe and other part of the world, there's no physical Israel. It's contradiction. It's church replacing physical Israel. And this is why you have young Catholic like Candice Orban, all this shouting about anti-Semitic and so on. So that is the foundation, right? And then for the left is that after the exile of the Jews in 70 AD, then came Islam about 600 years later, and they said, look, the church is against the Jews, so shall we. And so there came the Quran, you have to kill Jews. And so this explains the far left, right? You have Hassan Piker, right? That the Democrat is endorsing him. He's the number one Democrat Party representative of anti-Zionist. And anti-Zionist is a bullshit of another word of anti-Semitic, right? So Hassan Piker is the loudest noise now in the left of the Democrat. And because of this and other factor, you have recently Alan Dershowitz, it's very hard to pronounce his name, right? He has been Democrat since 14 years old, and now he's close to 80 years old, and he publicly announced, from now on, I'm a Democrat. I can't take any more bullshit coming from Democrats, which is totally anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic, right? So, but why are we seeing the rise of threat level in UK? It's all coming from the mother of propaganda machine, which is since 1979, the Iranian Murad IRGC regime, like Aaron said. These are the propaganda machine behind pro-Palestine. Why? People who support pro-Palestine, they don't see the connection. Where these people get the money from? The mother of tentacle, which is Murad IRGC regime. This funded a lot of this propaganda machine. So much that if you are in the center of US, because of YouTube algorithm, you're bound to get all this anti-Semitic narrative. The question is why now? Because Trump is putting so much pressure on Iran, Murad and IRGC regime now. It's all who blink first in order for the Iran, Murad, IRGC regime.
Wait, that explains the uptick of Jew hatred in both the UK and the United States?
Yeah, because they have to quickly, the whole ideology of Murad IRGC regime is to bring down the whole world. And
I grant you they influence it, but I doubt the majority of Jew hatred in the United States is coming from the country of Iran.
Let me explain.
Okay,
So the whole idea is the Murad regime promotes end time of Islamic world, right? And this end time of Islamic world involves shooting missiles to the Gulf state. And so the Muslims say, my God, we are in the end world. So we have to start killing Jews. Otherwise, by the time we reach the judgment day, we have to be peaceful.
Unfortunately, a lot of the attacks on the Jews, probably most of the attacks on Jews in the United States, I won't say this is true for Europe. It's not coming from the Muslims. All of this organized nonsense that occurred on the college campuses did not come from the Muslims. It came from the far left. So I think you speak too much in absolutes on this issue, David. So, for example, you said a moment ago that the Democratic Party is entirely anti-Semitic. And I think even you know that that's hyperbole on your part. Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker, Richie Torres, Dan Goldman, who is Jewish, these are just off the top of my head. They've been vocal supporters of Israel in combating anti-Semitism. There are Democratic advocacy groups like the Democratic Majority for Israel, which is promotes pro-Israel policies within the party, and then they back candidates who support those views. And Jews are well represented within the Democratic Party. A significant percentage of Jews are Democratic elected officials in Congress. I don't know the exact number. I can look it up. So to say, what's that?
I don't disagree if you speak to Alan Dershowitz. He's a Democrat since 14 years old. Why he now publicly wrote that he's switching to Republicans?
Well, because there is some within the Democratic Party anti-Semitism that is beginning to raise its head, and the party is struggling with how to handle that, because they have this open tent philosophy that we're open to everyone. So they try to accommodate everyone. So how do I accommodate the anti-Semite without? And the Michigan case is a prime example. The Muslim guy running for the Board of Regents as a Democrat at the University of Michigan at the state convention. I discussed it the other day. He was cheered on and nominated, acing out the incumbent Jewish guy after posting a tweet in support of Hezbollah. Because you don't want to be seen as a Democrat as, God forbid, being anti-Muslim, and if you stand up to this guy for his support of terrorism, it may be misinterpreted as being not anti-terrorism, but anti-Muslim. So the Democratic Party is having a difficult time, which you don't see institutionalized in the Republican Party. And so as a result of that, and as a result of some prominent members of the Democratic Party making statements about the right of Israel to exist, etc., and I know you know to whom I am referring, there are Jews who have traditionally been Democratic voters who are now leaving the party. Not just the example that you give, but I know many Jews who are at least considering themselves no longer Democrats and independents. Many of them now declaring themselves to be Republicans. So that's the reason. I think that's the reason why, David, it's far more nuanced, though, I believe, than the way you present.
I agree. The way you point out is much more accurate. And what I want to go back is the campus. So the whole idea is the campus protest is a recruitment of the far left, recruitment of the student. How do you recruit them? Indoctrinate that into the university curriculum, and where the money come from the Middle East. The whole idea is the end-time ideology, bring down the whole world by systematically indoctrinate the West, so that they have this idea of pro-Palestine everything. Everything is to bring down the whole world, recruit the far left, try to provoke the far right, and then keep on telling the Muslim living in the West, you want to kill the Jewish now, do it now. Otherwise, you are running out of time. Thank you.
I think you're absolutely correct about the undue influence of certain Arab countries on our universities, and there's been some research into that recently as a result of the attacks on Jewish students on campus. Because once again, because they are Jewish, and because they might support the state of Israel, they are legitimate targets. How dare you have that point of view when my point of view is the righteous, moral, and ethical point of view? So you are deserving, by virtue of your faith of birth, of whatever pressure I can put on you. And some of that pressure, and I have documented it in my reporting, has been academically based. I have done stories about students whose grade point average diminished because of their views on Israel. So it's pretty obvious that there's a causation there with all of that money flowing in. You're absolutely right about that, Dave. Perusian followed by agent.
Hello, Gary, everybody.
Hello.
Sorry, I was making coffee. It's a little bit late here in Germany. So, just want to share also my concerns about the rise of this anti-Semitism in also Europe. And as I understand now, as I wrote that article that you shared, I was shocked about that incident in Manhattan. We also in Germany, I know that the German